Ladies and gentlemen, big Tariff news.
Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Oh, Shane's gone. Kia ora whānau. How are you all? Chewy gave me a message this afternoon. He has gotten back from Auckland after seeing... Here comes Shane. Bring Shane back in. Here comes Shane. There's Shane. Hello, Shane.
Kia ora, Pat. Kia ora, viewers.
Explaining to the whānau that Chewy got back from Pearl Jam, and he said he's brought something back with him from Auckland, and nothing good comes back from Auckland. So Chewy's got a sick day today, and filling in for Chewy at least on a couple of the stories. Shane Tapo, thank you for joining us, Shane.
Good to be here. Getting over my jet lag. I ride when Saturday morning.
Okay,
Something like a 30-hour trip, but I'm all good.
Yeah. This is where I'd normally ask Chewy what has he been up to for the weekend. Anything since you've landed in Auckland? Anything been going on? I know you've been away. That's what we're going to talk about.
Just been resting, recuperating, trying to get up to date with what's happening in here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and almost get depressed more by the day. See, unemployment numbers up at 4.8.
Yeah.
All sorts of bad things happening out there, Pat, and we'll talk about it during the course of this quarter or tonight, no doubt.
For sure. We're going to talk to Shane about his time in the US. He went there to observe the election. And then we're going to talk to, Shane's going to talk about the beginnings of the hikoi, which started today. And then later on in the hour, I'm also going to talk to all of y'all about that Trump is basically the Brexit of America.
Yes.
Because there's a whole bunch of people who have who had voted for him who are now regretting their vote. So we'll bring a whole bunch of those. I've been watching a bunch of other people's podcasts through the weekend, American ones, bring a whole bunch of those resources in. And one other thing that I want to play you before the night's out to do with that. Let me also say this, because I will tell you about something I did over the weekend. And that is, I discovered Jimmy the Great. Jimmy the Great is a YouTuber. He is a really interesting YouTuber. He's from the UK, and he's a YouTuber who was very much in the land of being a fan of Tommy Robinson, being a fan of Trump. That was his world. And then he realized that there was a different world out there. And I came across this episode here, which is how I escaped the alt-right, and I watched that over the weekend. And if you guys haven't heard of him, well, I hadn't heard of him, it's a really interesting delve into, I've sent him an email to see if we can get him on to have a chat. It's a really interesting delve into how much of where we stand and what we think is first and foremost economically driven. Really, really interesting. And he ties all these things together, like at those times where there's been like a revolution within society, good and bad, has been around times when, the economics of the economy of that country has fallen and failed. So it's real interesting dude. And he just put out a episode just in the last couple of days, how the left failed young men. And this is obviously about Trump, that young men have fled the left in America. And he's kind of a bit of a raw guy. And he starts it off by just saying, because men on the left come off as pussies. And he's like, I'm sorry I've used that word. I'm sorry that, but he's like, but men on the left come off as weak and malleable. And there are a whole bunch of new young men who have been driven through the Joe Rogan cycle, who are all now coming off as hunters and beard wearers and gym guys and all that sort of stuff. And it's just it's a really, really interesting look and a delve down. Like I just said, I've emailed Jimmy the Giant. I do that to dozens of people and don't hear back from them. I'd love to get him on and have a chat with him. So that's that's something that I found over the weekend, really interesting. But Shane, that probably does tie into our first little chat we want to have with you, because we do want to talk about your time in America. Now, you sent me a message, I don't know, week and a half ago, and went, hey, I'm off to observe the election in America. And I was like, oh, geez, you're pretty lucky, man. Tell us the situation. How did you get to shoot off to America and observe? You used the word observe the election. What was it all about?
Well, I've got a mate. His name is James. He's the punter, and he until this round of election, he just gets it right all the time. I think he was the only one that predicted that Newland sort of would go to the National Party, and we just we met on Twitter couple of years ago, and we've just got a close friendship, and we've done a tour, sort of like a music and getting to know American tour about 2 years ago, and we decided to go on a self-funded trip up to particularly the eastern states to observe the election. So, we went there, we spent some time in New York, a lot of time in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is an interesting place. It's like Alabama. It's Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, with Alabama in the middle. And that's actually not unusual in the States. You've got, some of those states are like 2 or 3 different countries. So basically we just went on a self-funded tour, and but our aim was to talk to ordinary, for want of a better terms, ordinary Americans in their own backyards, in their own barbershops, in their own diners, in their own dive bars. And that's what we sought out to do.
Interesting you say self-funded, because I think I heard a particular commentator talking to you about there's a commentator over there riding off the back of Radio Watia. So he was either wrong or that wasn't you, or were you doing stuff for Watia while you were over there?
No, I was doing stuff for Watia, and just to be absolutely transparent, I got a small koha, but certainly didn't pay for the airfares or anything like that. And I was doing work for Watia. Also had a corridor to RNZ and TVNZ and to ZB. So so that's how it worked out, Pat. But by and large, it was self-funded, I can tell you that.
Well, we showed you a couple of the videos that you sent us. We showed the people, especially the BHN gear. I'm sure that got good use while you were over there.
Yes.
One of the things that I think we all want to know about is you went to did you go to the Madison Square Garden Trump rally, the one with Tony Hinchcliffe?
Spent a lot of time outside talking to the folks there, and there were some oddballs, some real strange sort of wackos that believe in lasers, that believe in that he is the coming of the prophecy. But I want to be honest with you, Pat. I also met some pretty decent people that you could sit down and have a corridor with. And if there's anything I've come back from this trip, is that we ought not to demonize all Trumpites and Trump supporters. There are people that do feel disenfranchised, that do feel hopeless, that feel left down by the system, and particularly traditional independent and Democratic voters that just didn't know what the Democratic Party stands for and just felt abandoned from them. And that was just a common theme I got from ordinary good folks.
So you didn't get to go inside the rally. Did you just go and visit the outside and get the kind of vibe of it?
We did a bit of both, but it was just a bizarre sort of scene for me, and I don't want to stick around there too long. I was there for about 4 hours talking to folks, and that was enough for me.
What was it like on the inside, seeing whenever you were there for stuff from the stage?
Yeah, it was evangelical. It was a little bit scary. I was very careful not to sort of snigger or laugh inappropriate, because some of it was humorous and effect, Pat, but it was high energy, nothing I've sort of seen before, and evangelical, as if you were at some sort of a people. His staunch supporters see him as a coming of the Lord, the second coming of the Lord. It's sort of hard to describe, but that's the reality of the view we got from a lot of people. But again, Pat, I just want to say that there were some people you were able to sit down and have a corridor with, and just felt that life, that they had been squeezed, and that even though when you asked, how would he turn it about? How would the billionaires who supported him make your life better? It was really hard to get a clear view from them, other than can't be any worse than what we've got.
Just speaking of that, I mean, Gold's just asked a question here. What was it like being better informed than local Democrats? Were you able to convince any of the Trump/Harris positions?
Shane, what was it like being better informed? Yeah,
did you change any hearts? Okay, let me repackage that. Did you change any hearts and minds?
No, that wasn't my purpose. My purpose was to listen to them and to try and get an understanding of them. And I've spoken about some folks that I met on the Trump line and the Trump rally, but I also got this perspective by a group of young Puerto Rican guys in Allentown. And so let me give you some perspective of Allentown. Yeah. Allentown was an industrial city where there was a lot of money around. They got paid big salaries, and then within 3 or 4 years, 100,000 jobs were lost in the steel industry. So you're talking to younger people whose mum and dad were laid off, who were unemployed for 20 odd years, all then took up service sector jobs on $6-7 an hour plus tips, and and as one of the people we spoke to in the barber shop in Allentown, as he said to me, he said, Shane, I've been poor all my life. I've been poor under Biden. I've been poor under Trump previously. I've been poor under Obama, Democrat or Republican. It doesn't really matter. I'm poor, and whether you're poor under Republican or poor under Democrat, it's almost irrelevant. You're just poor, and I got that.
I watched some really interesting commentary over the weekend. I think it might have been Kyle Kalinske, who was talking about Donald Trump being the revolutionary figure between the two. That Kamala Harris ended up being the establishment candidate, and Donald Trump was the revolutionary candidate. And I think what he was saying, to probably butcher his whole clip, is that it wouldn't have mattered who the Democrats put forward, because there's all that backbiting, fighting going on at the moment. Because not to say he's going to have a good revolution, but because he was the revolutionary character of the two, he was always going to win. Now, people are saying that in hindsight, obviously. I mean, Kyle Kalinske also did a pre-election sort of prediction where sort of at the worst case scenario, Kamala would still win. So he got that wrong. Now on reflection, he's saying, this revolutionary, and his position was the only thing you can do to combat like a revolutionary conservative is to have a revolutionary progressive. And then people have started to talk about how since Bernie disappeared because of the DNC kind of running him, taking an election off him almost, they've gone establishment, whereas the Republicans have gone more populist. And that's actually now where the winning formula is, that these are my words as I'm thinking it as we're speaking.
I get what you're saying.
The Democrats are kind of becoming everything that the Republicans are accusing them of. They are the swamp. And I'm not saying I believe this, but I can get how they're now being labeled as that. And look, Trump's going to have a swamp. There's no question about that. But because he's able to sell the idea of being the revolutionary, he's got there. It was a really interesting take, I thought.
I think this Trump administration will unravel, and it'll unravel reasonably quickly. Because just the egos in the room. How the hell will Musk and Trump and JF Kennedy Jr. and others sort of get on? How will they function on a day-to-day basis? I just don't think. And JD Vance, although he played quite a steady role and influence in the campaign, but I just don't know how they're going to work amongst themselves, let alone set an agenda. But having said that, and the guy got mandate. He won all 7 swing states. He won the popular vote. They won the Senate, including unseating, I think, a senator who'd been in the seat for 20 years in Pennsylvania. And it looks like they're going to get the House, and of course they've got the Supreme Court. So, my gosh, from a Democratic perspective, could it be any more stark? What I said, and I think there's a very important lesson for Labour here, is that if parties who presume to be of the left are simply neoliberal light, people are going to vote for the real thing, you know, and the Democratic Party for quite some time they don't even talk about the working class, Pat. They don't like that term. You know, they talk about the middle class, which is cool. But you know, if you're an electrician or a plumber, you do feel that you've been sort of left behind from your own party, and if you're going to get ripped off or mistreated by, say, the National Party in New Zealand or the Republican Party in the USA, that's bad enough. But when you feel that you've been let down and abandoned by your own, that's quite a deep grievance.
Yeah, I can't remember who I was talking to. I think it was a Labour MP on the show. And I brought up that thing that we've said often, which is when National claims that the CEOs don't like Labour, Labour should go, that's right, we're for the workers. Yeah. And I said, we're for the factory floor workers. And the point that, I don't think it was Kieran, it might have been Kieran, I can't remember. The point that they made back to me was, the problem is there's not that many factory floor workers left. That's not the economy we're living in anymore. So how do you then, you're talking about the middle class or the working class, how do you then pitch this message to a working class that at one stage looked very much like the steel worker and now, I mean, you say plumber and sparkies, dude. Plumber and sparkies make a shit ton of money. So I can imagine some of those guys quite liking quite liking the tax breaks that the right will give them.
No, I get that, and I know that there's these sort of changing dynamics, but you know, Trump, man, and please don't get me wrong, I despise the dude, but his position, without any inquiring in terms of how is it going to be paid for, how much this will cost, but you know, when he said that I'm going to no tax on overtime, no tax on tips. I'll tell you what, that was a direct message to the people of Nevada who work in the hospitality industry, and it worked for him. The guy has no base principles, and he will say, and he will lie, and he will repeatedly do that. And man, millions of Americans got sucked into the vortex.
I'd like to get a feel of what it was like. You were there on the eve of election day. What did it feel like being in and around Americans on election day eve? Was there a sense of which way it was going to know, or did really nobody expect it?
No, it wasn't expected. It wasn't expected. But when you reflected back on the conversations you had with people in the local diner, in the local bar, you know, in the local barber shop, you know, you get it now. You know, I wish I was a good enough pundit to sort of realise that. And you know, the other thing is that I wanted to win. So you know, I'm probably some of my predictions were wishful thinking.
Right.
No. The view was that it was going to be very tight. Whether you spoke to Republicans, whether you spoke to Democrats. But I tell you what, I did not at the rally, but outside of the rally, I did speak to some very staunch MAGA folks, and they were absolutely convinced that they were going to win, and that they would take the Latino vote with them, that they would take a fair chunk of the black man vote, which they have done, and simply on the basis that they've had enough of the establishment, and he was able to draw the Democrats as the establishment.
Yeah, completely right. And then what about election day? I mean, obviously, fairly early on in the evening, it was you know, there was a result on the day of the election. How did it feel being there on election day? When did the kind of vibe start coming up? Oh, we see what's happening here, and how did the punters react to that?
Well, look, I didn't get the only feel I got was I was at a watch party that was very staunch Democrat, and you could see, and I've been there before, Pat, myself. You could see the enthusiasm and the blood sort of drain from their face. But the next day, DC is a very staunch Democratic town. You could tell people were depressed and people wanted to get out of there, as I did. But you know, Pat, I I'd been chatting to the maintenance guy that worked at our local hotel. I was there for 3 or 4 days. Asked about him. How's it going today, my friend? How's your family? And I must get to New Zealand. And then the day after the election, he said, "Good morning. How are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm a bit depressed." And he said, "Well, I understand that." And he said, "But today's another day, and we've got to get on with life." And that was the view that I got out of many people. And I had dinner with some friends in DC's very liberal people, and I jokingly said, "Come on, hop on the plane with me." And said, "No, mate, we've got to take ownership of our party. We've got to organise, and we've got to ensure that Trump's clause on the power as limited as possible." And and they had their first chance to do that just in 2 years' time, in terms of the midterms.
Yeah.
And if they can win the House in 2 years' time, that will severely slow down his ability to enact legislation, just the way that their system works.
Yeah, but I mean, don't want to sound like too much of a pessimist, but how many people after this result would expect them then to win the House? I mean, that's
I know, man. I get all that. But just the message. And the other thing is that millions of people just didn't vote. I think that's quite evident. And we saw that here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, particularly in, the seats I always talk about, Manerua, Manukau East, and Māngere. And we saw that in heavily populated Democratic areas. My gosh, Pat, they lost 10% of the vote in New York, in California, in the staunches of the staunch sort of Democratic votes in states. And, when you really don't stand for anything that people can put their finger on and can say, yeah, that's a great policy and this will affect me now, then people look for the alternative. And we did that at the last election when Chippy said bonfire policies, and all he really replaced it was with GST or fresh fruit and vegetables, and a dental program that wasn't even going to be put in place for 10 years. You got to stand for something, and you got to stand for something now that's meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, you probably know this, Shane, before the last election, and I think it's true the world over. If the left votes, the left wins. And Kamala underperformed every single state as compared to what Biden got. Trump had about the same number of votes. Kamala had 15 million fewer votes than Joe Biden. So Trump kept his base, and maybe there was a bit of toing and froing, and people fled the left. The left has this is what it looks like. I mean, I'm being blunt because it's what it looks like. It looks like that America is saying the left have nothing to offer us. I mean, the mandate that he's been given, like you're saying, popular vote, first time since 2004, since George W. Bush. He's going to now be able to set up the Supreme Court to and beyond 2050. It's like it's a complete rejection of the left. Now, I think in some level, and we'll look at some of this later on tonight, they've been fooled, like they've been tricked by a con man, but it doesn't really matter now because the score is on the board. He won.
The score is on the board. The score is on the board, and it will take some time for the Democrats to sort of regather. And the part of the problem is that it's quite an institutionalized party. It's about hierarchy. It's about time. You have a look at their leadership. Biden, their president, their original president nominee, Nancy Pelosi, still has a a huge influence. The surname escapes me, the head of the Senate. These folks are all 80 years old plus. It's such an institutionalized party. I'm not just talking about age, and it's very hard for new, fresh talent to break through.
I think the big question for all those politicians who watch our show, especially those guys on the left, is what is there to be learnt from this result, the utter rejection of policies from, and there's some people in the chat saying, stop calling the Democrats left. In the American setting, they're on the left. So a complete rejection of that style of politics and what they're offering. What is there to learn for New Zealand left politics and New Zealand in general?
I think that you just simply can't. I think that people on the left are sick and tired of politicians that say we can't do this. We've got to be incremental, because incrementalism is very easy to overturn and it doesn't get people very far. I think you've got to have quite a strong agenda that you're willing to back. And I think Labor, for instance, has the chance to do this, whether it be a wealth tax or a capital gains tax, but you got to stand for something, and you got to stand for something that is meaningful. And all due respect to Chippy, GST, or fresh food and vegetables, was not meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you're saying about standing for something, what they did well in the last term is they kept New Zealanders more and less compared to the rest of the world very safe in the era of COVID. But then when the election came along, that was somewhat toxic. So they didn't sing their own praises from the rooftops about how they kept an additional 20,000 New Zealanders alive. And because they didn't shout about that, they had nothing left to shout about. So it looked like they had nothing.
Well, I get that. I get all of that, and I sympathise with that. But when you are going to the grocery store and your basket of kai costs $90, and 3 months ago it was $70, and your wage is and you haven't had a decent wage increase for 2 or 3 years, that's soon forgotten, because people are dealing with the reality of their daily lives. And when I sat down and I spoke to some of those Republican-leaning folks, they knew that he was not going to fix healthcare. That they knew that the tax cuts that he introduced, by and large, were for the wealthy. But my gosh, I just think that they just got tired of the incumbency, and there was a deep view amongst many traditional supporters of the Democratic Party is that it had become a party for, and I hate using this term because I get called it sometimes, of the elites. And just a really frustrating that we had been almost being mistreated by the Republicans. We can put up with, but by our own, we can't.
Yeah, be interesting to see what happens from here on in. There's a couple of chats I'm just going to put up there as well. Spider says, kia ora Shane, nice to see you on the show again.
Kia ora,
Spider Hoof. Kiwi Bird says, well done Shane for surviving the US election. And there's another one here, not related to the US election. Kiwi Rail reports today that the government is gearing up to apologise for cancelling the ferries and admit it was a mistake. I hope Labor milks them for it. Interesting if they do that. That would be the grown up thing to do. I can't imagine. We call her Nikki No Boats. Nikki Willis. We can't imagine Nikki No Boats actually saying she was wrong, because if they admit they're wrong, then when they do bring out their second rate solution, they'll get tarred with that for the rest of time.
Pat, can I just tell you another observation? About my time in the States.
For sure.
By and large, whether the Republican, Democrat, or they don't like talking about politics, Americans are very hospitable. They're intrigued about the fact that I'd come all the way from New Zealand, and that I was interested in politics, that I knew a lot about sort of the history of the United States, and willing to have a chat, and many of the issues or the questions that they have are the questions that you have, like how's your family, how are they coping, how do you put your kids through university, what happens when you get unwell, and I said, well, we have universal healthcare, not far from perfect, but certainly better than the system that you have. So, just ordinary people having conversations and corridor, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about many of the visits that I've been to in the States. And by and large, they're actually very polite, generous people with their time.
I've interviewed a few conservative Americans as a part of this and other podcasts that I've done, and they're always dumbfounded when I say, if I break my arm on roller skates, I go to the hospital, they set it, and I walk out, and they go, "How much?" And you're like, "It's just that's what it is."
Yeah.
There's videos all over the internet. If you want to look them up on YouTube, people in the UK being asked how much, or it might be the other way around, how much does it cost to have a baby in America? And the UK people are like, "Well, nothing," and they're like, "Well, it's $12,000." And they ask the American people how much to have a baby in the UK, and they say, 10,000, and they're like, nothing. It's unfathomable. The one other thing I was going to say though about the healthcare, there's a saying that I've used numerous times, which is when America sneezes, the world catches a cold.
That's right.
Through their economy, but now. I mean, there is word going around, and I don't think this will happen, so I'm not being overly dramatic, but what Robert Kennedy Jr. Is thinking about doing with things like vaccines and stuff. And taking power away from the governing group that that legalizes various drugs, that we then use their kind of system to say, oh, they're safe for us then, that it could literally mean the world catches something terrible with what they're proposing. It's scary. I saw another one as well. Donald Trump's putting out these little clips all the time at the moment, and he's got one where he talks about 10 things, and his first thing is, and I stopped it after the first thing because I was so shocked. The first thing is, from now on, parents will be able to decide what their children study in school.
Yes, that's right.
Parents will be now deciding what the syllabus is. Not the education specialists, not what's needed to go through a school, not the experts, but parents.
No, science will be a relic of the past on a lot of fronts. But Kennedy's other big game is he wants to do away with. He wants to make America healthier again. I'll tell you what, but he will not win a battle against big corporate food America. That's two of the things that America have been fueled on over the last 20 years: cheap mass-produced food and cheap mass-produced fuel. And take that away, and the economy will crash. So, I think they've overreached, but time will tell. It's early days. Yeah, I understand buyer's remorse is there, as it was with Brexit, but. He has got a very, I'll give you an example. We thought that the Democrats would do better because they had a better on the ground game, but he doesn't rely on that. He just relies on direct messaging to people, and he gets traction.
Scary. And the only thing that I think is another possibility of happening is he's been all bluster. This is Trump, I mean. Right the way up, like for example, 200% tariffs. We're going to talk about that later tonight. And then when the rubber hits the road, he won't do it because he might finally realize I can't do it. And the only reason he was saying he was going to do it was to kind of point out how hypocritical the Dems are and how he's going to make America first again. But when it comes to it, he may not do it. He may not impose those things, and so therefore you might actually end up having a result that's, I'm not going to say a typical US government at all, but maybe more typical than, because we're concerned at the moment about the worst case scenario. So maybe not quite the worst case scenario, maybe still bad, but maybe not as bad as people are thinking today until he gets
in. The other thing is that America is an economic superpower, but is not the economic superpower it used to be. The UK thought they could walk away from Europe, and Europe will kowtow to them, and that hasn't proven the case. Quite the opposite. The UK's got some long-term problems. Basically they self-imposed economic sanctions on themselves. I just think that the US, if they're not careful, could fall into the same boat where Europe, Africa, which is growing economies, China, India, the BRICS sort of countries, they will form their own alliance. And America, for a long time, hasn't got the manufacturing sort of grunt that it has in the past. It's still very important in terms of IT and new technology, but it's not the economic superpower that it once was. life has changed.
Yep. Okay, let's do a couple more of these texts, and then we're going to get on to the hikoi story in day one of it. I've been in contact today with Eru Kapakingi, and we're trying to get him on maybe a couple of times this week, and I think that will happen. Just relating back to our conversation about what does the left in New Zealand need to learn. Q-Bird says Labour needs Karen to lead. Sorry, Chippy. It's funny, because but then again, so was Chloe. Chloe went, nope, don't want it. Nope, don't want it. It's not for me. So kind of the same thing Kieran's saying at the moment. I still think Kieran will probably be the leader going into the next election, but we'll wait and see. Brian says, has Chippy learnt his lesson last election? Well, when he was with us, he seemed much more open to a capital gains tax, etc. Rajan says, late fee, glad Shane made it back from Madison Square Garden alive. And here's one other thing that I've seen some reporting on today. Peter says, I just feel sad for Ukraine. I saw in a few articles today that Biden is front-loading cash to Ukraine at the moment, that he is just getting as much as he can to them, with fears that when Trump gets in the first week of January, that he may actually put his thumb on the scale quite significantly. So they're trying to load up everything.
But look, mate, that's one thing. But he's going to empower Netanyahu. You know, he's not going to call for ceasefire. He's not going to call for a peaceful solution. He will empower Netanyahu, and I feel painfully concerned for the people of Gaza that have almost been blown out of existence, and what's happening in southern Lebanon. But you know, anybody who supported Trump on the basis that they were disturbed at the Democrats in action over this issue, their chickens are going to come home to roost, and it's going to be the people of Gaza who will ultimately pay that price. He will empower Netanyahu, and he will allow him to finish the job. It's horrible. It's so horrible you don't want to think about it. But I just think that's the reality of a Trump-empowered administration, particularly at the level it's been empowered by its own people.
Yeah. All right. Hey, let's move on. I am going to come back to some American stuff later on tonight, and it's just going to be more about the fallout at the moment from a lot of Trump voters going, what the hell have I done? We'll get to that towards the end of the show. But right now, let's have a look at this situation in New Zealand around the hikoi. I'm going to play the piece from One News tonight. Let's start with that, and then love to get your take on it, Shane.
In the darkness, figures emerged from the fog. United in their cause, flags flying high with the long journey ahead. Daylight struggling to cut through, but those gathered here hope their future will be much.
Māori people kind of a spiritual people. You reckon starting in the fog and the kind of dark weather, there's some significance there?
I think so. But Cape Reinga, but also the significance in 1975. That's where Dame Whina Cooper March started from. There is a movement happening, and I think that we'll see numbers in Wellington next week, 40, 50,000. But I also don't think it's just to be about the hikoi. I don't think it'll be just about what happens next week. I think that there will be a lot of ongoing pressure in the government, and there are thousands of our treaty partners that are concerned about this, that will be activated. And you know, I think that, you know, parliamentary representation and gaining social benefit as a result of parliamentary representation is important. But also I think activism, protest, that does bring about real change. And you know, my gosh, give you an example. The mood of the board report, the CEOs, they actually marked Seymour down, and they said that he was focusing on issues that that do create division, that are of concern, and the economy is not doing as well as they would have expected under this government. So, you know, I think there's a whole lot of complex issues that this government and its coalition partners will face. We've got a Roy Morgan poll, which I'm not a big fan of, but, those numbers are quite stark. We'll see where the next one comes out. But back to the hikoi, it's going to be a big movement, and I think it's going to unite a lot of people from the left and even from middle New Zealand. And here's the other thing that Seymour underestimates. He underestimates the fact that we are moving towards a bicultural country, that particularly young people don't have the hang-ups that many older folks in Aotearoa, New Zealand have, and there are 1 million Māori that live in this country. And times have changed, but he hasn't. He's trying to turn back the clock, and I think it's just a mass movement, both politically and fundamentally, that will get some cohesion.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep going with the story. Here we go.
Clearer.
This hikoi is just a platform for more, for better, for a journey well beyond Parliament.
To send a signal to the whole world that we will keep marching until we get our sovereignty.
And as the hikoi began, children led the way.
Our tamariki mokopuna are seeing our people stand. And no longer will we be relegated to the back of history books, but we will be paving our own future.
There was solidarity from treaty partners too.
In this context, if it's just Māori raising this voice, then that's not going to get us far enough, because we need to do this together.
Tell me something. You'll know the history of it better than I. How was non-Māori involvement in 75? Like, what kind of percentage or what kind of activeness?
Look, we've got there's a history of Pākehā solidarity and support within the Māori movement. You just take, I can name John Minto, I can name Jane Kelsey, Tom Newman, who has passed away. It's been deep, and it's been long, and it's been well appreciated. And Mona Maniapoto's done a lot of good work on this issue about the importance of our allies. And I think but I think it's just growing. And also, Pat, the world has changed. I'm 57. I came from a small town where there was a Pākehā family here and a Māori family next door, and then a Pākehā family and a Māori family. Doesn't work that way now, man. We're much more mixed bicultural society than we were in 1975.
And there's also a much different, I like the way non-Māori think about Māori issues is different. So even if it is a Pākehā family, they would, who's younger, let's say Gen X, Y, Z, who think very differently about Māori issues than perhaps in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, that Pākehā family did. So it'll be interesting to see. And look, we're obviously huge supporters here. It'll be interesting to see once the culmination of the march happens at Wellington, the mix between Māori and non-Māori that are there, and other, it's going to be
Pacifica, Tangata Pacifica. No, I think there's more than a march. I think that there is a movement. I think also the economic issues and the economic chasm that exists in New Zealand between those that have and those that don't. I think that would be part of the agenda. And some people will call it rent a mob, but no, these issues, whether it be the environment, whether it be economic disparity, whether it be te tiriti, these issues do accumulate, and they do bring on different people on the one waka for different purposes, but going in the same direction. And I think that we're going to see something here in Aotearoa next week and beyond that we haven't seen for quite some time, and it will worry this government. Well, it bloody well ought to, though.
Yep. All right, let's go.
A peaceful welcome in Kaitaia, with locals joining in on the march.
I'm here to stand up for our rights, stand up for our treaty.
To support my whānau, my people, my tamariki coming.
Te iwi Māori is coming together against the current political landscape.
The Treaty Principles Bill is due for its first reading at Parliament on Thursday. Its architect welcoming the debate.
This protest is against a range of government policies, including the Treaty Principles Bill. I believe it's important that we have open dialogue against our country's future.
But the Greens say it's a waste of time. They want MPs to be free to vote how they feel on the issue, rather than following party lines.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always been a bit concerned, Shane, that when the Prime Minister says we'll only support it to the first reading, that maybe the second reading will be a conscience vote and they'll just happen to all vote the same way. National didn't support it, but I don't think that anymore. But Chloe's about to talk about conscience votes, and it might be interesting to see if the conscience vote happened. Maybe it wouldn't even make the first reading if people, because Luxon was saying on Guy and Espina's show last week that this is divisive. So this is divisive. It's a divisive. So he was saying it. So if there was actually a conscience vote, I wonder if it would even get through the first reading.
Yeah. The other thing is that he will be polling his own people. He will be polling the landscape, and he will know this is not good for them.
Yeah. Yep. All right. This has got about 30 seconds. Let's get to the end.
Yeah.
We do not have to have something that is prescribed by one guy and one political party, which is evidently going against all of the evidence, all of the history, and to be frank, the truth of what Te Tiriti o Waitangi is.
I get it. There'll be people that will be frustrated on all sides of that debate about that conversation. But this is a modern MMP environment coming to life in New Zealand.
Debate heating up as the hikoi marches on.
That'll do us. So, what are your overall thoughts, Shane? I mean, you go.
Sorry, carry on, Pat.
No. I don't really have anything. You go.
No, my overall thoughts is that I'm very optimistic about Māori, non-Māori relationships in Aotearoa. I think that we've grown well as a country, that we are going towards a level of biculturalism every day. I am concerned about, ACT's agenda and New Zealand First agenda, but overall, to be honest, Pat, I'm very optimistic, and I think that there's an old saying: political parties come and go, but the treaty endures, and it's so historically and politically entrenched in our society. We ought not to take this for granted, but I think we're going to be fine, Pat.
What do you think? And I'll hopefully talk to Eru later this week, and I'll ask him the same question. But what do you think the target of this march is? What do they want to achieve, and what do you think it will achieve?
I think what they want to achieve is to show you that there's real opposition to this unnecessary piece of legislation on the bill, the Treaty Principles Bill, that the treaty is a construct of contract that warts and all has suited and has had real benefit to New Zealand and Aotearoa as a whole. So I think that's
So you're saying they want to make making a point. I'm not minimizing, but they're making a point.
They're making a point.
Just so you guys know, this is how New Zealand is feeling. That's what they wanted to achieve.
Yeah,
do you think do you think that will achieve anything?
No, I think it will, and I think it will scare the Prime Minister, and I think he will sooner or later have to show some leadership over this, because you simply can't sit on the fence on this issue, because you get splinters on your backside. So, the Prime Minister will have to show some leadership. I haven't seen it to date, but I'm hopeful.
I don't know. Because he's got us out. He's got us out. You heard him saying it there. He said, welcome to the MMP government. This is what it is. And he said with Guy and Espina, I don't want this, but this was part of the negotiation. So Luxon is a any means to an end Prime Minister. He's like, I will sell my soul to the devil if it means that we can get into power and I can get through a third of what we ultimately would like to get through.
Yes, so, but ultimately politicians want to get re-elected, and if he sees those poll numbers dropping, man, I think he will react. And if he doesn't, others within his caucus will.
Do you think, though, like in all seriousness, do you think that that his voters will is there a chance that the people who put him in this time will turn away from him because of this? I can't imagine it.
I'm not sure because of this, and but I think if they see their like in America, they see that they're not benefiting financially, that things are getting tougher for them. I think it's a cumulative, yeah, and I think we're going to see a two-track economy. You're going to see people do very well, but you're going to see a lot of people who won't be doing so well, so I think it will be a cumulative. It won't be just this issue. There'll be others. And the other thing is, Pat, we haven't seen any real crisis that's come out of the blue, and these things sooner rather than later happen in the cycle of a government. And I think he's going to have a real problem dealing with it, because one thing that he doesn't have is that's political agility, and he just continuously reads the room wrong. This is a guy that has put 3 of his properties on sale, and this is a guy that said that he was entitled to claim his accommodation because the Premier House wasn't ready. This guy really just does not get it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I saw you on my Twitter feed in the weekend. It's it's shocking. It's shocking what he thinks he's entitled to, even though he is entitled to it. But it's shocking what he thinks will play okay. Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, this won't matter. I'll show you as well if you like. We're working on some new hoodies. I just told you what we call Nicola Willis Nicky No Boats. Yeah. There you go. That's going to be a hoodie before Christmas, I think. Nice. Get people out there. Nicky No Boats. A couple of chats that are coming. Ken, thank you for the super chat. There's definitely a movement happening, and it's been motivated in large part by Seymour, who has no idea what he's unleashed, and neither does Luxon. Yeah, that's been something that's been talked about a couple of times. Isn't it funny that it might end up that David Seymour and Winston Peters might be the 2 people who bring Māori together more so than they've ever been before, thanks to those 2 guys.
Perhaps, yeah.
And Katie says, which we're going to move into now, England and Wales voted for Brexit, not Scotland and Northern Ireland. That's right. So there you go. Hey, thanks for coming on tonight, Shane.
Enjoyed it, Pat, and I'm really pleased that your show is doing as well as it is. You and Chew put on a lot of graft, and you're getting the rewards, and I was just a little story. I was down on the Eastern Bay of Plenty about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and one of my aunties, who's certainly not young, she came up to me. She said, "I like your mates with the beards." And I said, "Who are you talking about, Auntie?" She goes, "Those South Islanders. I listen to them all the time."
Well, kia ora to Auntie. Glad she's on board.
Yeah, she's on board.
All right, Shane. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Much, eh?
And we'll talk super soon.
Take care.
All right, dude. See you then. Bye-bye. We do need to have a co-host, don't we, Whānau? And our co-host has been that little ginger thing there. So she can be the co-host for the rest of the show. Now, just so you know, I don't plan to fill the show with American content. I know you guys generally are most keen to check out New Zealand content. That's what we're here for. That's what we're going to continue to do. So what I guess I'm saying is I'm earmarking tonight's show that we just talked to Shane about his time in America, and I'm going to talk some more right now about the American election, but we will focus on it and mention it at the appropriate time and when we need to. But this is not going to be because Trump's got in and all the hugely contradictory and controversial stuff. This is not going to turn into that, just so you know. But what we do want to do, because when I think about what's happened in America, I think about the messaging that it gives people in New Zealand. I mean, we have seen on some level happen in New Zealand at the last election what's just happened in America. The left got a spanking and the right got run of the ship. Shouldn't mention ship because, ferries and all. So I think that the way I'm now thinking about the American election, there's obviously the kind of, oh, what did he say? Oh my gosh, isn't that embarrassing? Oh, he is a blooming racist kind of comments. But then there's also, what is this doing for us and how do we learn from this? And I think that thing that I put up at the very start of the show, if you're with us at the start of the show, with this podcaster, Jimmy the Giant, doing I'll just bring it up again in case you weren't here, bringing a clip up this week about how the left failed young men. I think that's a huge part of it. I think the messaging that the left in general, and I know people are going to, it's not the left, it is left. I'm just talking in general, right? The left in general have, I won't say turned their back on young men, but certainly have not provided what young men need and want, have not had a product that's been attractive to young men. And if you now look to America, you could also include in that the Latino population, black men as well. And there's something about the messaging from the left that the left in the world need to sort out. Now, we can also marry that up against why did this happen in America now? Well, incumbency has been thrown out the world over. Right? There is one place in South America, I can't remember the name, which country it was, but the only person who seemed to survive incumbency not being thrown out was the guy that they call the Latino Bernie Sanders. And I wonder why they didn't throw him out, because he has the messaging that Bernie Sanders has of populism. So yeah, I'd like to learn from this for us. And I think it's really important also for us to arm ourselves with knowledge and be accurate as to what's going on. Because what's happening in America and what has happened in America is evidence that they do not have the knowledge. They voted out of ignorance. So you can see, I'm going to bring up some Google Trends charts for you, okay? And I've done them from the 1st of October to the day after the election, just so you can see that the things that are increasing are upticking significantly after the election. It's not like a trend that you'll see all through the time. This was a Google search in the United States, only in the US, where we looked up, are tariffs good? So after the election, which was here, I believe, after the election, a huge amount of searches was out there for, are tariffs good? They didn't have that information before the election to help make their decision. Similarly, are tariffs bad? From the 1st of October, see if you can guess where election day is. So people who have been voting not knowing how tariffs work are then seeing the result, realizing tariffs are coming in and going, oh, what are those things? This is another one. Who pays a tariff? They're still arguing over who pays a tariff. Look, nothing, all through October, nothing through October, nothing, who pays it, nothing. After the election, who pays a tariff? And of course, the one that you've probably heard about, how do I change my vote? Change my vote. All the way through October, and then after the election, how do I change my vote? Can I change my vote? It's very, very evident that there is remorse. And when it was in the UK, it was called remorse, because it was for Brexit, with some people's vote. Now, let's be clear. Will it be all of the people who have voted? Of course not. There'll be some people who want to squash minority rights. There'll be some people who want to see both legal and illegal immigrants deported. There'll be some people who think there's a trans agenda, transing our kids. Those people will probably be pretty much happy through the Trump term. But other people are asking questions about their vote. This guy, John Cooper, I'll give you his lowdown. He was the campaign chair for Barack Obama, the national finance chair of draft Biden. He tweeted this out. My MAGA neighbor 5 minutes ago. I just read that tariffs are going to raise prices for stuff. I don't get it. I thought China was going to pay for them. I explained how tariffs work. I wish you could see the look on the guy's face when it sunk in. Yeah. And we're also getting stories from people that this is starting to impact the real world. A few TikToks that have been going around.
So it's already started. I import products from overseas. Products that are made of materials that are not produced here in the US. They haven't been produced in the US for, 50, 60 years. So no matter how much I wanted to pay, I could not get these materials here in the US. And all of my manufacturers have sent me emails letting me know that because Trump was elected and he has threatened tariffs, all of the pricing will go up in January in anticipation of these tariffs. So the goods that I buy will cost me more money.
So this is just with the threat of tariffs. Manufacturers through Asia are saying prices are going up, guys.
Not the other country. And then I will have to raise prices that I sell them at to make that up. So it's already started. And for people who didn't realize what a tariff was, you're about to find out, okay? Because it's going to affect everything that you buy.
There we go. We'll move on to another one as well. This is a comedian. His name is Walter Masterson. And he had to explain to this MAGA guy in real time what a tariff was. Have a listen to this.
I'm voting for the man that's going to take America back, baby. Donald J. Trump, man.
What's one of your biggest issues?
Probably going to be inflation, because I sell T-shirts and all that stuff.
Your T-shirts are made in the USA?
No, my blanks, no. See, that's the thing Trump's talking about. If we tax them, hit tariffs, the same item they're making over there will cost the same to make over here.
We pay the tariffs.
Well, the companies pay the tariffs, not us.
China doesn't pay the tariffs. We do when they come in.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Like if I'm buying 1,000 shirts from...
This guy's a voter, and he voted for Trump. And he gets his blanks, meaning a blank T-shirt, from China. And he's happy at the moment.
China, and there's a tariff on it. I'm paying the tariff.
Well, no, whoever's getting it imported in is going to pay the tariffs.
Yeah. I'm the business owner. I'm paying the tariff. China doesn't pay it. I pay for it.
Well,
like if I'm the business owner and I buy 1,000 shirts.
I see what you're saying.
China's not jolly. So I'm trying to explain.
Who pays the tariff? They're paying the tariff.
Do you think that? Do you believe that?
No, because I was trying to say, because I sell merch as well.
This is a great reaction, by the way, of the big dude in the cap. When the guy finally gets it, just the look of utter despair.
I sell you something for $10, right? You're going to sell it to him for $20.
Exactly.
But then I make you pay me $15 for it. Are you still going to sell it to him for $20?
Am I going to sell it to him for $20?
If I raise the price $5.
Oh, it's going to have to go up.
Right. So
yeah, the consumer foots the bill.
I mean, just the utter disdain in that one. And look, I mean, I'm not going to, this sounds ridiculous. I know everyone gets it here, but if there's one person who doesn't, think about it this way. Your T-shirt manufacturer in China, you pay $1,000 for your crate of T-shirts. And then China gets charged a tariff of $300 on that $1,000. So then they got to recoup it. So they charge you $1,300. So even if you're taxing the China, they just pass the cost on to the person buying it from them in America. So if you charge someone more, then they charge the business buying it more, who then pass it on to the supplier. Mark Cuban did a very good, and I assume most people have probably seen this, a very good long sort of rant on Thread, explained the whole thing. I won't read it all to you, but I'm showing you this to show you a response. Right now, every company that imports from China is taking all the cash they can muster and buying up as much as they can and stuffing it in the warehouse in anticipation of tariffs creating accelerated demand for imports. That money would have been used for expansions, raises, bonuses, and other operational elements. Because cash is relatively expensive and it costs money to store inventory, those companies will increase their prices as if they paid the expected higher tariffs. He goes on to talk about the same thing will happen to exporters as well, because there will be retaliatory tariffs put back on America. Now, in this thread is this response. I took this off one of the YouTube videos because I couldn't find it because it's a very long thread, but this is in the Mark Cuban thread. Results have already started. This is from an American woman today. My husband works for a small manufacturing company, and here in southwestern Pennsylvania, that means most employees are Trump voters. When the president of the company sat them down to tell them their annual Christmas bonus would not come this year because they now need to purchase at least a year's worth of products prior to January 21st, due to the proposed tariffs, they did not understand. My husband said that their president had to explain what a tariff is and how it will directly hurt their company. They all thought the foreign company paid the tariff. Well, this is the point. Even if they do technically pay the tariff, then they pass the cost on. They all thought the foreign company paid the tariff. This is the level of ignorance voting against their own interests here in Pennsylvania, where we failed American women and children last night. So here is also some more information that's just been coming out showing how people have not understood what's going on and how some people are regretting their vote. Justin Wolfers, who is a professor at University of Michigan, economics probably, says that Senator J.D. Vance said that economists disagree about whether tariffs lead to higher prices. So this week, the University of Chicago surveyed economists and asked them exactly this question. Imposing tariffs results in a substantial portion of the tariffs being borne by the consumer of the country that enacts the tariffs through price increases. 95% of the economists either agreed or strongly agreed. 2% were uncertain and 2% disagreed. And there's a little note here that says the one economist who disagreed appeared to understand the question as asking about a tariff on one country rather than all countries, as Trump is proposing. So this is something now that we're going to keep an eye on. Now, I know a lot of people probably have issues with Bill Maher overall and what he's all about, but you remember that the Republicans in general have told us, they've gone, Trump won't be that extreme. You know, they haven't quite said the room will be full of adults, but that's what they've kind of been saying. And Bill Maher makes this exact point, that now it's like what we say about Christopher Luxon. He opened the door for the treaty principles bill. So Luxon, you own that, right? You are responsible for that. There are a bunch of Republicans who are responsible for keeping Trump in check like they said they would.
To my friends on the right, I said it to them last week. I said it to them personally, because they all have the same idea about Trump. He says a lot of shit. Okay, now you won. We'll see if your he just says shit doctrine is real or it's not. But just stop. You won. So you can afford to be magnanimous now, my right-wing friends. And understand that, you know, when we're worried about fascism, it's because he talks like a fascist. We're not plucking it from thin air. Okay. That's my message to the right.
There you go. So he's basically saying it's up to them now to sort that all out. Something a bit more levity for you, perhaps. Oh, I've realised I haven't got the thing I wanted to finish it with it on. This is the First Minister. Oh, no, this is not the First Minister. I think this is a Green MP. Greens MP. Talking to the First Minister of Scotland and how they congratulated Donald Trump on the win.
First Minister offered congratulations to the convicted felon Donald Trump on his re-election. Writing officially on behalf of the Scottish Government, he wrote that he is sure Scotland's cultural and social ties with the US will flourish during the presidency of a misogynist, a climate denier, a fraudster, a conspiracy monger, a racist, a far-right politician who tried to overturn an election result both covertly and by inciting violence. Words fail me. What social and cultural ties does the First Minister really think will benefit from a relationship with such a man?
And then he goes on to say, well, I have to play a part, that's my job, sort of thing. So whatevs. Right, let's just do this last part. And this is what I want to say. I've shown this once before on this podcast. I'm going to show it again because We told you before the election in New Zealand what would happen with a national-led government, and it's happening. I'll show you what's going to happen in America at some stage for some people. Remember at the start of the show I said Trump is America's Brexit. And there's a bunch of people who are regretting their vote. There are a bunch of people who are educating themselves now after they've voted and of stuff that they should have known before they voted. Listen to this caller. He voted for Brexit. He regrets it. This won't be obviously every person that votes for Trump. It won't even be the majority of people that voted for Trump. But there will be people who voted for Trump when their daughter gets raped and they can't give her the care that they need because of the rules. When their family members get deported, when it impacts them or they see it happening to things and people around them, that this will be the call they'll make to their local radio talkback show.
In Exmouth. Bill, what would you like to say?
Actually, James, I owe you an apology, my dear fellow. I was wrong.
Go on.
I was wrong. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that, I'm an old-fashioned git, really, I suppose.
We've spoken before.
Yeah, we've spoken before.
Yeah.
And do you know what? You are right. I was wrong. For some reason,
Go on.
I thought we were better off. And clearly I was wrong.
Well, don't beat yourself up, Bill, mate. Listen to all the people that told you we would be. I've spent the whole morning telling they've been whispering in your ear, not just for 2.5 years, for 30 years.
I was wrong. I am so sorry.
Oh, Bill, mate, come on.
What have I done to my country? So sorry.
Bill.
Just in case you missed it, amongst the tears, it was, what have I done to my country? What have I done to my country? The man who voted for Brexit. Trump is America's Brexit.
Bill, there's 17.4 million people. You can't take all the blame on your own shoulders, my friend. Come on. And look at the effort. These people are billionaires. They own the Ritz, Bill. They own the Daily Telegraph. They wouldn't have spent all that money on...
Sound familiar? The billionaires behind Trump? They own Fox News. They own the Washington Post.
They wouldn't have spent all that money and put all that effort into trying to persuade you to act against your own interests if they didn't think it was plausible. I'm not going to let you blame yourself, Bill. All right? No. Blame them, Bill. Blame them, Bill. Do not blame yourself.
I'm sorry, James.
Don't be sorry. Be angry, all right? And if you're not angry yet, I'll get angry on your behalf. That right there. That's why I've been doing what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years.
Now, James O'Brien is far more generous than me, because I wouldn't be saying that Bill should take no blame because Bill voted, and we all have the opportunity to be informed, even though people are whispering in their ear. But those things about billionaires are behind this. They've been lying to you. You've got a false narrative. The amount of conversations going on at the moment amongst independent media in America and about the left-leaning independent media, and pointing out what the right has. Something like 9 of the top 20 podcasts in the world are right-wing podcasts. And all the television networks that kind of work together, the OANs, the Fox News, and the left's got nothing like that. The left's got nothing like it. And I was watching Brian Tyler Cohen, and he got quite angry, I think. Maybe he wasn't angry, but he was like, the right have this ecosystem where, and you see it here in New Zealand. I mean, Winston Peters goes on the platform. You know what I'm saying? You see it here in New Zealand. And when the left have something that they want to share or get out there or highlight, they go to 7 Sharp. They don't come to the independent media world, but they've done this in America. They've owned the podcast space. They've gone on Theo Von, and whether you like them or not, they've gone on Joe Rogan. They've invaded that space and they've owned it. And the left in America hasn't. And you're seeing it here too. The politicians understand better. They'll go on those independent right-wing news medias, and they'll go on the News Talk ZBs and that kind of stuff as well. But the right won't come on independent left-wing media as much. And when the left wing have something that they want to talk about, they go to the mainstream media. And that's not where the audience was found in America. The audience for a Trump win wasn't found through the mainstream media. It was found through the alternative media, new media, independent media, whatever you want to call it. and they haven't figured it out yet. And it's, as I said at the start of this, I'm just fascinated about this as to what it means for us here in New Zealand. What does it mean to Labour and the Greens, and on some levels Te Pāti Māori as well, when it comes to, I mean, Te Pāti Māori, okay, so they're much more likely to go to independent media, whether it's through Wati or something else like that, and not necessarily the mainstream. Labour and the Greens, not so much. They stick with their mainstream places. They go there first and foremost. I mean, I have to say, we've been very lucky with Labour. I actually truly believe that Kieran McAnulty has put in a good word for us, and we're able to get access to people now. But when they have something to say, they don't necessarily come to us. They go to the mainstream and that sort of thing. And that's fine. I mean, to be truthful, this little thing is smaller than that anyway. But my point being, as independent media grows, the right seems to have been able to figure out how to best use that to the end goal of getting elected, and the left hasn't. And as independent media grows in New Zealand, I hope the left don't suffer from that same mistake in that same era. That's about it, team, for tonight. I don't think there's anything else up there, is there? I have to say a big apology to start off with. I haven't remade the credits for the new patrons, and we've got some lovely new patrons this week, and people who have upgraded. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I've started making a new outro credit, so rather than updating the old one and making a new one, I'm just making a new one, and I'll hopefully have it finished by tomorrow. So those people will all get shout outs tomorrow, and will also be mentioned at the start of the show, and will be in the credits tomorrow, but not in the credits tonight. So I apologize if you've joined up in the last 7 days. I love you. But you'll be in tomorrow nights. Other than that, coming up this week, Julianne Genter, speaking of people coming on, Julianne Genter's coming on, we think, on Wednesday night. I'm not sure how well or unwell Chewy is. He just told me he picked up something, so hopefully we might see Chewy tomorrow. If we don't, we've got some lovely Friday night hosts that might want to jump in and play games with me as well. I just want to... Pat, would you have Sean Plunkett on your show? Well, I've podcasted with Sean before. If you want to go see me talking to Sean Plunkett, just go into this page on YouTube and put his name and it'll pop up. I don't have an opinion on that, whether I would or whether I wouldn't. It would depend on the reason why. I don't typically get people on who there's not a reason for and a narrative to have on. So it would depend on the situation. All right, let's have a look at some of these. Oh, thank you for your super chats, team. That's lovely. Brian Turner, ignorance and stupidity doesn't work in voting. Junk rig sailor, Pat, exporting businesses overseas don't pay the tariff. No, I think maybe I didn't explain it well enough. I think what Mark Cuban was going is if America is going to put a tariff on China for China's stuff, then what China will do is put a tariff on the American exporters, a retaliatory tariff. So the current situation, you're right? A tariff is a tax imposed on foreign-made goods paid by the importing business to its home country's government. Yeah. So what he was saying, which I maybe didn't explain very well, is let's say it's John Deere, or let's say it's Levi's. They're probably not made in America, but let's say Levi's are made in America, and then those Levi's were going to be exported to China. China, in retaliation, will put tariffs on American Levi jeans. That's what he was saying. So you're right. That's what's been proposed now. But Mark Cuban was saying this is what will happen next. Thank you for your $10. It's very generous. Kiwi ZD, you sound like maybe a newie. I highly recommend watching the short synopsis of A Trip Down the US Political Sewer, Tesla Equals Trump, by the YouTube channel led by Donkeys. Adam Mockler showed this on his channel this afternoon. Very good. Good recommendation. I'll go and have a look. And I think our last one for today is Mr. Alex, about those people who vote for the wrong choice and later regret. It's pretty much a leopards ate my face situation. Yeah, they're going to be people who voted for Trump. And I'll put it this way, maybe it's a little bit of my optimism. If he sticks by what he said, there'll be people who voted for Trump who themselves will be getting deported by Trump. And maybe their friends and family deported by Trump who voted for Trump. You've just seen those examples on various channels that people who voted for Trump in factories are now not getting Christmas bonuses because the company has to have the money for the tariffs and the projection of what they're going to spend next year. Yeah. Hey, Nala, your head's cut off. I don't know if that's good, mate. Can you lie down? Get on your mat. Go on your mat properly. There you go. You look much better. There you go. I can see your face now. There you go. People were worried in the chat that you'd hear you cut off. All right, guys. I guess we will catch you tomorrow night at 9 o'clock for another edition of Big Hairy News. I'm not sure who's going to be here, but we shall see. Isn't it exciting when you don't know what's happening tomorrow night? It's like a big surprise, not just for you, but for me as well. I'm padding right now because I'm trying to load up the closing credits, and I've done it.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a war path to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a sub and a higher in mind. All heavily either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what you impact. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
All right, guys. Love and kisses. And we'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 o'clock for another edition. As I said, later in the week, we're looking to have Julianne Genter on. She said you'll come on, she's got to find the time. And that's got a bit to do with the ferries and stuff. Bit of a tip tonight. We got told that there's going to be an apology about the ferries tomorrow. We'll wait and see. There's another apology happening tomorrow. Maybe they are going to apologise about the ferries because it'll be overwhelmed by the more significant apology happening tomorrow about state care. Anywho, we'll catch you tomorrow night from 9. Also, I've emailed a bunch of people, some of the YouTubers that I showed you tonight, to see if they want to come on and chat. We'll see what happens. But until then, stay safe, be well, and we will catch you tomorrow night. Hooroo.